Hi everyone, Heather here with astrologywithheather.com, and I am back with another weekly forecast. This one is for Monday, February 22nd, all the way through to Sunday, February 28th of 2021. And this week, things are really looking up. We have a powerful, beautiful, pragmatic full moon in the sign of Virgo, and this is making a really nice trine to Uranus in the sign of Taurus, which has been a rather problematic energy, especially in the past couple of weeks because we've had Uranus in square with Saturn exact. We've had Mercury retrograde squaring all of this and creating some additional stimulation of the Jupiter and Saturn square to Uranus as it stationed to go retrograde last week. And so things have been feeling really frazzled. Things have been feeling all over the place. It's been kind of hard to take that scattered energy and concentrate it and focus it on one thing and to actually do something with it, to make the changes that we've been wanting to make. And so this week, things start to really come together. We've been dealing with a lot of hurdles and hardships that have caused us to have to make adjustments to our plans and to be flexible throughout these first couple of months of the year. And now we get to see the results of our efforts. Now we get to see the results of the changes we've been making and the hard work we've been putting in. And so this is a beautiful, powerful week. But before we get into that, I just want to mention, if you're new to my channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I do a new weekly forecast every single Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And if you're not new to my channel, or regardless, the way that I structure my videos is that I start with a 5 to 10 minute general forecast. Do not skip this. This is going to provide important information that will give you a context for the more personalized reading I'm going to be giving for each of the 12 signs. Speaking of which, when I do get into the forecast for all 12 signs, make sure that you listen to your rising sign, your sun sign, and your moon sign so you can get a more holistic overview of the energy for the week ahead. Your sun sign is, your rising sign is going to be the most predominant energy. Your sun sign will be secondary, and the moon sign will be important to listen to as well, although that will be more internalized and more subjective, unless, of course, you are a Cancer sun, a Cancer rising. There are exceptions to that rule. Finally, at the end of the video, I do a 2 to 3 minute overview of next week's energy. And so that way you can get an even further look ahead into the astrology of the coming weeks so you can plan for that. So stick around to the end of the video if that's something that you're interested in. So let's get back to the forecast for all 12 signs. So this week, I love this energy. And I actually have a chart for you here that I kind of created this little image for my cosmic community gathering where we talked about the new moon and the full moon, which we do each month. By the way, we do a new moon ceremony. Well, not really a ceremony. It's kind of a new moon gathering where we discuss our individual ceremonies and rituals and plans for that. We do a lot of introspective work. We talk about the astrology of the new moon itself and how that's going to apply to everyone and what's coming up for the lunar month ahead. And so if that's something that you enjoy doing, if you want to help build and set your intentions within a community, the link to do that is down in the description below. But this week, we actually have the opposite of the new moon, the full moon, where the sun opposes the moon. And you can see here in this little image that we have a really nice energy here. So you can see the energy we've been talking about for the past several weeks, really since the start of this year, which is that Uranus at 7 degrees in the sign of Taurus, making a really nice, well, maybe not a nice, but a pretty clean square right now to Saturn, because that came exact last week, the Saturn-Uranus square for the very first time. And as I mentioned in last week's forecast, this is an energy that's going to be carried out throughout the entire year this year. This is the first of 3 passes. It's something we've been feeling for a couple of months. It's something that we will feel for the entire year. It just reached its first sort of pivotal turning point or peak moment last week. And so if you haven't already watched last week's forecast, I highly recommend doing so because that information is very valuable and it'll carry you through to the end of this year. But moving back to this energy here, you can see that we still have Saturn and then Mercury and then Jupiter in a nice little stellium here trining Uranus in the sign of Taurus. This is that frazzled energy I was talking about at the intro of this video, where it's kind of like our minds are all over the place. There are so many pieces of the puzzle to put together, and we're having a really hard time grabbing what we need and synergizing it and focusing our attention because there's so much that's up for grabs grabs. There's so many opportunities that are coming up for us. There's so many challenges we need to move past, work through, and overcome. There's just so much that's been up in the air. And now we're finally starting to see how these pieces of the puzzle fit together. But there's still some adjustments to make. We're still not quite there yet. In the next couple of weeks, especially this week, we start to see everything sort of come together. And next week in particular, things start to really move forward for us. But we still have that frazzled energy. And what this full moon is doing is it's actually providing a mitigating influence, or an influence that helps us to channel this energy of change and transformation and disruption, and the need to make adjustments to things that we thought were really stable and really solid in our lives, like certain mindsets or certain even physical attributes of our experience. We're having to make adjustments, but we're having to do it the right way and not the fast way that Saturn, Uranus, and Jupiter are like, let's just go, let's make it happen. Your brain might be saying that too, but the physical obstacles or the physical responsibilities that you have are kind of causing you to hold back or to take things slow. And if you don't take things slow, then you'll have to kind of backtrack later on, which is something we talked about in last week's video. But this energy provides an outlet. It's highlighting, first off, how far you've come, right? And so this is highlighting how far you've come when it comes to the changes that you've been making on a physical, tangible level, with your resources, with your environment, with anything that has to do with material manifestation, but also the changes that you've been making to your mindset, your ideologies, your beliefs, the facts and figures that you hold to as sort of a standard when it comes to your worldview. There's a lot that we've been letting go of when it comes to intellectual dogma in particular. And that's something we've been seeing coming up even before the Great Conjunction happened and even before this started, but especially as that came up. Kind of in the grander scheme of things, and I won't get into this in too much detail, I'll, avoid getting myself in trouble here, but there are things that way more of the population, that a greater number of people are becoming very much aware of when it comes to rigid and dogmatic thinking, especially on a scientific level, like scientific dogma and things like that. And in the realm of technology and the way that technology is being used, that's another thing too, that people are becoming so awake and so aware to on such a massive scale that we have never seen it before. That is such a reflection of this energy on that broad scale. On an individual level, you might become very aware of certain beliefs and certain things that you have held to be true, and you're being faced with new facts, new figures, new information that you didn't consider before, or that maybe you couldn't consider before because you were so narrow-minded or because you were so rigid in the thoughts that you were having about these things. And so now this new information, right, especially with that Mercury and Jupiter energy, this new information, this new wisdom, this new understanding is coming to you, and it's kind of like rattling, right? It's kind of disturbing. It's like, how does this fit with my current paradigm? How does this fit with what I already understand and know to be true? It's kind of all over the place, right? And so that's part of that scattered energy and that difficulty with synergizing everything, because you don't have to just synergize all of the new that's coming in. You have to synergize that with the old. You have to incorporate what already works and the foundation that you have that is true into this new paradigm, into this new reality, into this new worldview or understanding, and into the changes that you're making as a result of this on a physical level. And so this energy here with this full moon, it's kind of bringing everything to this really beautiful culmination point. And it's like, all right, we've been there, we've done that, we've looked at the facts and figures, we've had the new opportunities, we've overcome these hurdles. Now, what do we do with it, right? Practical Virgo. What do we do with this? How do we utilize all of this in a very pragmatic, very workable, very like real, down to earth, grounded way? How do we take all these bits and pieces, all of these details, and work with this energy, right? And that's going to be part of this too. It's also just illuminating a lot of the changes that we've made and showing you some of the results. It's like a sneak preview. You've started to make these changes and you're starting to see the results. You're starting to see what could be if you continue along this path. On the flip side, it's going to show you what could be if you continue along this path in a negative sense. And that doesn't mean that this full moon is negative. It just means that maybe you miscalculated, maybe you made some mistakes, Mercury's been retrograde, everything's been scattered, and it's showing you where maybe this pivot that you've made, or this change that you've started, or this inability to change, and this very rigid adherence to the old ways, where this is causing you potential problems, where you're starting to see the outcomes and you're like, all right, oh gosh, this is not working. And what this full moon can do for you is actually quite powerful. What it can do for you is it can cause you to see this and give you the opportunity to make changes in a very easy, very seamless way, as opposed to that disruptive, rough energy that we've been experiencing. And that's that mitigating influence of this full moon. And even if the changes you've made are working really well for you, and that's what's being illuminated with this full moon energy, there's still room for growth. There's still room to pivot even further. There's still room for new opportunities. And that's what's being shown here as well. And so this is a beautiful full moon energy. I love, love, love it. And in the sign of Virgo, it's not just about like, here's all of the opportunities. It's about what's practical, what's usable, what can you actually do with this? How do you put it together? You know, that's that discerning, very critical Virgo influence. So it's kind of like taking a critical eye to what you've already accomplished and where you've already come, and almost making like a judgment call, or judging yourself, or judging your experience, judging your actions, but not in necessarily a negative sense, right? This is about looking at things in a very clear way and making the judgment call that you have to make. Is this for me, or is this not for me? Is this path providing opportunity, or am I adhering too rigidly to the old? And am I preventing these opportunities from arising? Did I make this change and it's causing, you know, a negative influence, or did I make this change and I'm starting to see what's being created out of that change in a positive light? What obstacles do I still have to overcome in order to reach the full potential of this positive energy of this change, right? These are all questions that will potentially be brought up and maybe even answered fully at the time of this full moon. And so that's my my spiel for the full moon energy. The only other thing that's happening this week that's of, you know, great significance, there's a couple of different things. Mars is in trine with Pluto, which is a very highly focused, very ambitious, very driven energy. This is an energy where you can do anything that you want to set out to do. This is like an unstoppable force to be reckoned with. So I love that energy. If you have a task or a project that you really need to heavily focus on, this is a time where you can channel that energy very effectively. The other thing too is that Venus is actually moving into the sign of Pisces. And so Venus in Pisces is exalted there. So Venus loves to be in Pisces, as opposed to being in Aquarius, where I made some jokes on my Instagram about it's like the friend zone transit, because it's like friendly, but it's detached. There's not like as big of a push for an emotional connection under the energy of Venus and Aquarius. That doesn't mean Venus and Aquarius people can't be emotionally connected. That's not what I'm saying. But it's not the happiest placement for Venus, but Venus loves being in Pisces. It's very mystical, very magical, very interconnected. This is where you can form deep spiritual bonds with other people. This is where you feel deep compassion for others. This is also one of the best creative energies, especially when it comes to aesthetic creativity, visual creativity. So things like painting, sculpture, design, you know, anything that involves really luxurious fabrics or textiles or whatever, anything that you can see, touch, taste, on that like sort of physical sensory level. Even, you know, when it comes to verbal forms of creativity, although that's a little bit different, this is going to be more aesthetic and more sensual. But this is, if you are in a creative field, I mean, this is your time to shine. This is where the energy amps up for you in a very positive way. And so we do have that blessing of Venus out of Aquarius, no longer stimulating that interesting energy there, which made it even more challenging than it normally would be. And now we're moving on to something better. And so that is my forecast for all 12 signs, or sorry, my forecast for the general energy. Mercury is still retrograde as I'm recording this, so my brain is still in retrograde. But before we get into the energy for all 12 signs, I do want to make a couple of quick announcements. I have some really exciting stuff actually to talk about this week, including something that I'm putting out for free for you guys very soon. But first off, my Karmic Power of Eclipses webinar, where we're going to go deep into the eclipse energies, how they play out in transit, what it means to be born under eclipse. Under an eclipse, we'll even cover like pre and postnatal eclipses, everything you need to know about eclipses, which are very karmic, very influential energies in astrology. They are some of the best influences to look at to predict major life-changing events in astrology. And so I'm doing a full 2 to 3 hour webinar on the 27th. So this coming weekend, it's only available if you're a member of my cosmic community. And so you can join the cosmic community. Down in the description below, have access to this webinar, a ton of exclusive content, my new moon gatherings that I talked about earlier in this video, and my community forum, so you can connect with like-minded people who love astrology and learn and grow through those connections. The link again is down in the description below. I also wanted to mention that I am working on creating a free class that's going to be announced next weekend. So keep your eyes peeled. This is especially relevant for beginners and sort of new astrology students, or even older astrology students who've been studying for a while but who are having trouble putting all of the pieces together to understand how to give meaningful, accurate astrology readings. This is for you. And so I'm going to be announcing more about this webinar next week. Keep your eyes peeled on your inbox if you're subscribed to my newsletter. And even if you're not subscribed to my newsletter, I will talk about it in next week's forecast and provide a link there for you to sign up. Again, it's a free resource and it's going to be coming up in just a couple of weeks. And then also, speaking of learning astrology, the wait list for my new course, you can find that link down in the description below. This is not just a course, this is turned into an entire astrology program. It's 32 weeks long. We cover everything from the basics. We fill holes in your foundational knowledge. This is, again, especially geared toward people who are either beginners or who have been studying astrology and are having trouble synergizing and integrating all of the information they're learning in order to give accurate meanings, in order to understand higher level astrology concepts like making predictions. This is for you. And this course is going to be phenomenal. You're going to get mentorship from me and from 2 of my astrology teaching assistants that I've just brought on. You're going to have access to a Q&A forum. You're going to have access to live classes and pre-recorded lectures. There will be assignments that will help you to synergize what you're learning and think about the astrology critically, which is very important for putting the pieces together, and so much more. This is going to be a huge thing. So if you want to learn more about this, jump on the waitlist. Enrollment is going to be opening in just a couple of weeks, and so I will be announcing that shortly as well. And so that is my my announcements for this week. So let's get into the forecast for all 12 zodiac signs, beginning with Aries and Aries Rising. Okay. And so Aries and Aries Rising, this full moon is actually happening in your 6th house, which is interesting because this Uranian energy, this disruptive influence that's causing you to want to break out of old patterns and habits and create something new, create more independence and freedom for yourself, is actually happening in the 2nd house, which is the house of money and the way that you create and save and utilize your resources. And what's interesting about this full moon is that it could provide some sort of work-related opportunity, or it could show you the positive results of what you've been building and working on, especially when it comes to the day-to-day implications. And so this could actually provide a sort of smaller scale money-making opportunity, or it could show you how things could be for you on a day-to-day level with your work if you were to do something like, let's say, branch out and start your own business, work independently, launch that new financial project that you've been wanting to launch into. And so this is where you're getting some of that energy. There's been a little bit of sort of contemplative energy as the sun has just moved into Pisces. And so that's a little bit more reflective and internalized, where you've been kind of maybe feeling a pull to spend a little bit more time in meditation, solitude, seclusion. This is actually going to bring you back out into the world. It's like, all right, you had a couple days. you had a couple days of quiet. Now you got to do some stuff because there are opportunities to take hold of. There are changes that you still need to make on that level of finance in order to create the life and the freedom that you want for yourself, for your family, on that financial level. Oh, I changed my mic setup, and this is kind of harder to push the buttons. All right. So for Taurus and for Taurus rising. So for Taurus, this energy is happening in your fifth house. So this is actually a really nice energy for Taurus. Taurus has been kind of all over the place lately because you've had this chaotic energy of Uranus in square with Jupiter, with Saturn, with Mercury. Also, we had Venus there and the sun and moon for a while. There was like a whole big thing going on here, squaring your ascendant, causing a lot of frustration, disruption, the need for change when it comes to your relationship with authority, what you're doing out in the world, your career, and also more importantly, on an individual level, you yourself are changing. You're throwing out the old. You're embracing your weird side, and you're doing things that are new, exciting, innovative, independent, outside of the box, things that you never would have dreamed that you would be doing even a few years ago. And so you're ready to embrace this new side of yourself. You're ready to be more uniquely you out in the world. You're ready to change who you are and the direction you've been going in. And this is a beautiful time where you get to see the benefits of this, of the work that you've been putting in, of the disruptive energies, the chaos that you've been kind of working through. You get to see the benefits when it comes to you connecting more deeply and fully with your passions, with your heart, with the things that you love that bring you joy in your life. And it's because you've broken free from some of the old paradigm. It's because you've broken free from some of who you once were. It's because you're caring a lot less about what other people think about what you're doing. You're rebelling against those old circumstances and those old relationships for some of you too. And even those old work related circumstances, because as I mentioned before, that's a part of it. And so now you're seeing, all right, I'm changing who I am. And now I get to align myself. I get to decide who I am, right? This is you deciding who you are more independently, embracing that. And so, because you get to decide who you are, you get to integrate the things that you truly love and that you're deeply passionate about. And you get to figure out the practical and sort of pragmatic ways of dealing with that energy. So, maybe how you can incorporate these things on a day to day basis, how you can take your passions and turn them maybe into a business or into something that brings you some sort of tangible results in your life, all of these wonderful things. And so the first week or so for the last week or so, there's been a little bit more energy focusing on the needs of the group, your friends, your social interactions, what they think. But now this is more about what's in your heart and being authentic and true to yourself. For Gemini and for Gemini rising. So for Gemini, this energy is happening in your fourth house, which is the house of home and family and property and real estate. And so this is a time where you've been wanting, so there's been like this subconscious need to rebel against something. Behind the scenes, behind closed doors, in the background, in your dreams, in your meditations, in your spiritual practices, there's something that's been brewing in secret behind closed doors. It could even be that you're working on gearing up for some changes in your life in a big way, gearing up to rebel against something in your life, something in your current circumstances, some pattern that you've been repeating, and you've been doing so in secret. It could even be that you've been studying different forms of spirituality or different concepts that are unusual or different or eccentric or viewed as being fringe or outside of the norm behind closed doors. And now's the time where maybe it comes out in the home, it comes out with your family. Maybe the subconscious urges that you've been needing to harness involving like this need to rebel, this need to change, maybe that comes out in a need to change your home environment or your family dynamic in some way. This is a wonderful week for making small adjustments or changes to your home environment. In fact, this would be a great time to sort of rearrange your furniture, buy new furniture, redecorate in some way, do some small renovation projects, that type of thing. This would be actually a week where that would come out quite well for you, and that would actually help to release some of that restless energy that's mostly right now happening beneath the surface. So that would be a good way to express that more tangibly. You've also been, for the earlier this week, focusing a little bit more on work. The end of this week and into the weekend, when we have this full moon on Saturday, it's more about your home life and your home environment and how to make changes to make that more comfortable and desirable for you moving forward. For Cancer and for Cancer rising. So this full moon energy is happening in your third house. The third house is the house of your neighbors, your neighborhood, your immediate environment, and your community. It's also the house of short distance travel. It's the house of education, especially kind of like more practical forms of education, reading, writing, arithmetic, that type of thing, or like certifications that give you the ability to exercise a certain skill or trade. And so basically what's been going on here is that you've had Uranus in your 11th house, which is causing you to want to change things up when it comes to your social interactions. You're seeking out new friendships with different people who you never would have considered prior to this time period when it comes to your social circle. So people who think differently than you, people who are much more independent minded, people who do things in different ways. So you're kind of shaking things up when it comes to the types of interactions that you're having. And these new interactions can cause you to kind of break out of your old paradigm, or can cause you to. So, this is a week where it's going to be more about finding the right information, building community, connecting with people in your more immediate environment. The other thing with this Uranus in the 11th house is this could signify a lot of new connections via the internet, via technology. Now it's time for you to kind of focus on connecting with people in the here and now and in real life. This could also be an important piece of new information that's revealed to you in an unexpected way that changes your mindset, changes your paradigm. This is also where you're going to start seeing the results of the new connections that you've been making in a more positive light, and also showing where certain friendships, certain energies that you've been bringing in on that social level are not working for you in the way that you would want them to. So you need to either make adjustments, let them go, or bring in new energy. And so that's going to be a big focus here. This could also be the culmination of some sort of group learning activity or group related information sharing or group related projects, maybe even some sort of course or something like that, or mentorship group. It's kind of like showing you the way or showing you this culmination point of that, or causing you to want to start something like that, right? Because you're wanting to connect with like-minded people, you're wanting to collaborate, you're wanting to network, which is another thing with Uranus in that 11th house placement. And so this is a really great full moon in general for connection, for sharing information, for communication, and for new and exciting energy being brought into relationships of all kinds. For Leo and for Leo rising. So for Leo, this energy is happening in your second house, which is the house of money. And so Leo has been working hard at changing things, at pivoting, at making adjustments to your career plans, to your public reputation, to what it is that you're doing out in the world to sustain your existence, right? Also, your relationship to people in positions of power and authority, the legacy that you're leaving behind after your working years, if you're somebody who's in retirement, these are all applicable to that 10th house energy. But for a lot of you, this is going to be you getting some sort of financial reward or financial opportunity or a glimpse into your financial future that results from the changes that you are working really hard on making right here, right now, when it comes to your career. You're wanting more freedom, you're wanting more independence, you're wanting to do things differently. You feel potentially stuck, frustrated, bored, stagnant. You're wanting to rebel against your bosses and the authority figures in the workplace, and you're wanting to change it up. And things have been a little messy, I would say, with work-related relationships, or maybe there's been some challenges that have come up. But now you're starting to see the financial results that can come, the financial independence that you can have as a result of the changes that you're making, of the independence that you're seeking, of the opportunities that are coming in that you're taking hold of in the area of career. And so this is a beautiful energy for Leo. You could even have some money coming in this week unexpectedly through your work, on sort of a more mundane level, like a little chunk of money, like a bonus or something like that. Or if you've been branching out and doing something independently, like maybe you've launched a new like business even on the side, like a side hustle, and you get your first transaction or your first clients or a new client or something like that. That would be part of the energy for Leo for sure. So beautiful energy, and enjoy it while it's here. Also, I should mention for Leo, think about, this is also going to show you because it's showing you the financial implications of what it is that you're changing when it comes to your career. It's also going to show you where things are not working and where you're going to need to pivot even further to have the financial well-being, the financial freedom that you actually desire. And so that could be a part of it too. But if that is the case, the solutions will come quite easily for you right now. For Virgo and for Virgo rising, this is in your sign, Virgo. So you've been working through a lot of change when it comes to your worldview, your mindset about God, the universe, the world around you, your philosophies and framework that give meaning to our existence in this reality, your moral and ethical value systems. All of those are being changed and reframed. You could also be working on a new learning opportunity, either as an educator or as somebody who's a student being educated. And it's probably a bigger, more comprehensive, sort of higher level type of type of knowledge or type of information that you are invested in right now, be it, as a teacher or as a student, or even as somebody who's maybe writing a book or wanting to publish something that instructs other people in some way. There's something going on here in the area of learning, education, your mindset, your worldview. And also this could have to do with maybe wanting to shake things up, feeling the need to have an adventure or to travel or something along those lines. Whatever you've been working on and working through, I mean, this is benefiting you very personally. So the changes that you're making are changing your trajectory. They're changing your goals, your mindset, the way that you identify with the world, the way other people see you. It's really like a rebranding of the self that's coming through this energy, especially if you are a Virgo, sun, moon, or rising, anywhere from, I mean, I would say anywhere from like 3 to 11 degrees would be feeling this most, maybe 12 degrees because that moon is at 8. And so anywhere, let's say from 3 to 11 degrees, you're feeling this, the most strongly and the most positively. And this is the culmination point. This is where you're starting to see why you've been working so hard behind the scenes on this educational pursuit, on this new opportunity, on this need to create some sort of adventure, on this, philosophical level, or maybe integrating your integrity, integrating your moral and ethical value systems into the work that you do on a day-to-day basis. This is going to show you the why. This is going to show you the big picture. This is going to give you a glimpse into your future and into the opportunities that can arise and the changes that you're going to be making as a result of sticking it out, right? And overcoming the obstacles and making changes and pivoting as needed, even though things have probably felt very stressful and strenuous and hard on that sixth house sort of mundane day-to-day level. And so this is your time to shine. Also, this is a time where you might get some sort of opportunity. You might be in the spotlight. The focus is on you. So this is about how what you're doing and what you're changing benefits you personally, as opposed to focusing so much energy on your relationships, which earlier in the week might have been a greater focus for you. For Libra and for Libra rising. So for Libra, this energy is happening in your 12th house, which is the house of rest and solitude and seclusion. And it makes sense. There's a lot that's been going on, maybe more on a internal level, with Uranus in the 8th house. There could be power struggles or changes or challenges in relationship, especially, or with other people, or with institutions or entities, especially financial institutions or entities. There could be power struggles. Also, the need to change something on a deep psychological level to release and let go of fear, anxiety, obsessions, compulsions, addictions, old behaviors, old patterns that you've been sort of glued to due to your past trauma, past experience, things that are no longer necessarily relevant in the day to day. And so this is a time where you've been working on finding new and innovative ways of shaking out or breaking out of those old patterns, right? Those old addictions, those old obsessions. This could also be you studying things like astrology behind closed doors, or unusual forms of occult sciences and things like that. But this could also just be financial changes that have been coming up for you, Libra. And now you're starting to see, and maybe there's been some stress or some strain there. But even if there's struggle, you're seeing the opportunity that's coming out of that. Maybe, you're going to have more time for rest. Maybe you're going to have more time for seclusion and solitude. Maybe this is showing you the benefits of non attachment to what's going on the physical plane with this full moon in the 12th house. This is also a time where you're going to be getting out of the busyness of day to day reality. And this weekend, you're going to want to retreat. So this could be a literal like physical retreat. This could be a healing. This would be a great time for some sort of alternative therapy, like healing retreat or something like that for Libra rising. That would be one of the best ways you could utilize this energy with the sun in the 6th, the moon in the 12th, Uranus in this really nice, beautiful configuration in the 8th. So if that's something you've been thinking about doing online or in person, now's a time where you can absolutely make that happen and it will benefit you greatly. This is a time to learn about those transformative energies and to learn how to work with it. And so that's a great energy for Libra. So not so much out in the world, but definitely a good weekend to plan some downtime or to do some sort of healing work. For Scorpio rising. So for Scorpio, this energy is happening in your 11th house, which is the house of friends and social networks and people that you surround yourself with by choice. It's group interactions, group meetings. It's connecting and collaborating with groups of people for whatever reason. This is a very social new moon for you. You've had this energy of Uranus in your 7th house, which has been bringing in new, unexpected connections and collaborations out of the blue. It's also been creating some pretty dramatic changes to your current relationships, your current connections with others. It could even be, in your romantic partnership, maybe your partner is changing something really dramatically and it's impacting you, or maybe something about the partnership or the dynamic needs to change. In either case, your social life this weekend, this would actually be a really great weekend to go out and socialize or to connect with people online within a community, which is actually like very literally what I'm doing with this energy because I'm doing that webinar that I mentioned for the cosmic community at the start of this video. This would be actually a really great time to connect and collaborate with others, to do some things social, even if it is via the internet because you're still in like a lockdown situation or whatever. This is also where you're going to see the results of the changes you've been making within your partnerships, or it could even be that your partner is starting to see results for the changes that he or she has been making in their life, because that's a big part of this energy as well. The start of the week was more about your passions and the things that you love and focusing more on that level. The end of the week is more about, the group and what's good for the whole and focusing on those social connections. And so that's going to be a really great outlet. It could even be that your social connections, your friends, your networks show you something really important about the changes that you do need to make on a one-on-one level, or when it comes to important contracts or agreements or something of that nature too. So kind of keep that in mind as you're going through and engaging with your socializing this weekend. All right, so for Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising. So for Sagittarius, this full moon is happening in your 10th house, which is the house of career and public reputation. This is the house where, you go to work out in the world. This is the house where, and what's interesting about this too? So this is actually quite nice because Sagittarius has had Uranus in the 6th house for quite some time. And this year it's been extra disruptive. It's been extra tense. And so there might have been a lot of changes going on, or this sense that there's a need for change in relationship to your work, your day-to-day work routines and activities, your overall career goals and plans. You might have had disruptions with your work schedule, with your relationship with your coworkers, things of that nature. If that's the case, now's the time where you've been making a lot of adjustments. You've been working toward overcoming these obstacles and making the changes that you need to make. This full moon brings some sort of culmination. It brings some sort of illumination where you get to get a glimpse of what it is you're creating, of what it is that these changes will bring to you. And if these changes are not bringing exactly what you had hoped or exactly what you need them to bring, now's the time where you'll be able to see that very clearly, and you'll be able to make the necessary adjustments quite easily to align yourself with what you truly need, want, and desire, with that independence and freedom that you want on a day-to-day level with your work. This could also be, some sort of illumination involving people in positions of power and authority, your connections with an authority figure or somebody who is a leader in their field or in your field, that could come up. Or you could be seen as a leader, or you could be recognized in some way due to the changes that you've been making and the adjustments that you've been making, the opportunities you've been taking hold of on a day-to-day level in your career or in your work or just kind of in general. This could also be you. If the Uranus energy has been bringing unexpected or sort of strange symptoms or illness or anything of that nature, this could bring some sort of authority figure in a healing art or a healing field that might illuminate the answers for you, and you can finally make those changes. And so all of those things are a potential for Sagittarius this week. For Capricorn and for Capricorn rising. So for Capricorn, this energy is happening in your 9th house, which is wonderful. So this energy with Uranus has already been hitting you really nicely. And especially if you are a Capricorn, sun, moon, or rising, anywhere from, what was I saying before, 4 to 11 or 12 degrees. So let's say 4 to 12 degrees. If you're a Capricorn rising, anywhere from 4 to 12 degrees, especially around that 7 or 8 degree mark, this is going to be forming a grand trine with your ascendant, your sun, or your moon. This is a beautiful energy. This brings incredible opportunities for change that aligns you with your passions, that aligns you with the things that you love, that aligns you with your integrity, with your moral and ethical value systems, with the things that you hold true and dear on sort of a mental, philosophical level. This could also be a wonderful time for you to set off on some sort of adventure, or where an adventure comes to a culmination point, or an opportunity for an adventure or a new experience comes into your reality. This is a great energy for connection with children or for higher educational pursuits involving children. This is a great energy for making changes in relationship to your children in one way or another. This is a great time where you can have incredible epiphanies about whatever it is that you need to change in order to align yourself with your authenticity and your integrity. So this is a great social moon, but this is especially a great full moon for really anything that you want to change, anything that you've been working on taking hold of and aligning yourself with. Now's the time where you can start to see it coming to fruition. You can start to work with that energy more completely, and you can set things in motion for positive change. For Aquarius and for Aquarius rising. So for Aquarius, this energy is happening in your 8th house, which is the house of debt, other people's money, taxes, inheritance, joint finances. It's also the house of healing. It's the house of power struggles. It's the house of intimacy. It's the house of obsession and compulsion. It's the house of psychological issues. It's a lot of things, but in this particular circumstance, it's being highlighted in a more positive way. There's something going on here where you've been making changes or adjustments involving your home, your family, your roots, your property, your place of living in some way or another, or you've been wanting to make those changes, but maybe you've been having some obstacles that you've had to overcome on a personal level in order to get there. Now's a time where you can get the finances you need. Maybe you're thinking about renovating or moving or changing something involving your very literal physical home, and you need to get approved for a mortgage, or you need to sell off some investments, or you need to do whatever, move some money around. Now's a time where that can come up. Also, there could be an inheritance coming in, or an insurance payout, especially related to the home or to your family, and that could be a part of this energy as well. I would say that this is a really wonderful time for making important changes involving your home or your property that could lead to financial gains as an investment for your future. This is also a really great time for ancestral healing, learning about your lineage, your background, connecting with your family members, and sort of changing the dynamic of those relationships in a very positive way. This will benefit you well into the future. For Pisces and for Pisces rising. So for Pisces, this energy is happening in your 7th house, which is the house of relationships. This is a beautiful full moon for Pisces, even though it's in your opposing sign. This is the culmination point of some sort of connection, some sort of collaboration, some sort of information that came in. This is a very social full moon, and this is a wonderful time to gather together or to connect with your neighborhood, your community in some way, to share thoughts, to share ideas, to communicate communicate with your partner. This would also be a really great time for you and your partner to learn something new, like a new skill together, to take a short trip, to shake things up and to break out of stagnant old energy. And that'll actually provide you with new insights, new opportunities, epiphanies for where you need to move as a couple into the future. And yeah, I think that this is just a really great social moon. Pisces has had a lot of energy in the 12th house, which is very, I don't want to say antisocial, but it's like secluded. It's more about like kind of protecting yourself and doing things in secret and hiding away from the world and resting and relaxing and kind of, pulling away from the day-to-day reality and from those earthly connections. And now's a time where, you're going to be feeling a little bit more social. You're going to want to put yourself out there. You're going to want to connect. You could even have a new unexpected connection come in, romantic or otherwise, this week, and it could benefit you very much so in the long term, and you'll see how those benefits are going to play out. And so that is Pisces. And so that's my forecast for all 12 signs. Let's talk very briefly about the energy for next week. And so next week, we have a couple of different things going on here. Mercury is actually going to be in a conjunction with Jupiter, and that's going to be the third and final conjunction. We had this play out 3 different times, and this is showing us some sort of opportunity or some sort of idea that we need to take hold of and we need to run with. The first time around, it was like, okay, that's interesting, but how do I do this? The second time around, it's like, we're revisiting it, we're putting it together. The third time around, it's like, yes, I need to learn about this thing. I need to jump right in. I need to take hold of this fully and completely, and I need to make it into reality, or I need to learn about this more, or I need to share this information, this insight that's come in. And so that's going to be really a big part of next week. The other big energy is that Mars is finally leaving Taurus. So Mars will no longer be in a degree-based aspect or even a sign-based aspect with the configuration, that stellium in the sign of Aquarius. That is great news. It'll feel much less intense, much less scattered. It's already starting to lessen and alleviate, but next week it's like, whew, okay, we did it. We made it through, and now it's time to just move forward without all of this chaos. So it's going to start to feel a lot better. It's going to feel like things are opening up. It's going to feel like a breath of fresh air over these next couple of weeks, and especially into March. The energy is beautiful. For those of you who are thinking about like launching into something in March or April or May, something really important, the energy is much better. And I do have my Electional Astrology Guide for spring to help guide you through that and to help you to pick the right days, the right charts for the birth of whatever it is that you want to create this spring. So you can find that link down in the description below. But that's my forecast for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, and share this information with your friends if you feel like they could benefit from knowing about the astrology this week. All right, I'll see you guys next time.